Let's do this, folks. We're going to be talking about irredeemable buffoons. A lot of the things we've been doing thus far have been joking around, pointing, mocking, maybe a little serious stuff here and there. But now we're getting into the sort of the big kahunas of buffoonery. The ones that are so far gone, they don't even remember the first time they sold out. We're going to be going through 4 different categories, so we're going to bypass a lot of the BS, I guess, and get right into things. The first group we're going to be talking about of the irredeemables, these really, really bad buffoons that I talk about here in my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Lies, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores.
This guy is a grifter.
I gotta do the grift. It has to be in every single segment. We're going to be talking about a group called the Egotists. Now, unlike other buffoons that we've dealt with, as my voice cracks right now, these buffoons actually have a brain in their head. They have talent. Thanks for showing off the book. Look at you with the grift. You're getting it down so good.
You catch on fast, old buddy.
A good example of the egotist from recent memory, pal, Michael Avenatti, is a great example of someone who had an epic rise and an epic fall.
Oh man, Avenatti crashed hard. Definitely flew too close to the sun. They were like floating him to be a presidential candidate, weren't they?
Oh, Brian Stelter, right? Mr. Potato Head. Wasn't he saying that he would take him out as a credible candidate?
Flashback.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. I don't know if it's a good thing that star power and TV savvy is required for the job, but I think it is. And by the way, I think President Obama also had a lot of TV star power, and that helped him pre-Trump. But Trump is more evidence of this. And looking ahead to 2020, one reason why I'm taking you seriously as a contender is because of your presence on cable news.
End of flashback.
Jesus Christ. I miss him. Isn't he in jail?
Avenatti is in jail. Yes, absolutely. But he certainly had a meteoric rise thanks to left-wing media. And he certainly had just as bad of a fall. So he's a great example of an egotist. Think about the egos involved in taking down Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee, pal. You got people like Barack Obama. You got Nancy Pelosi. You have George Clooney and other large donors. Those are the type of egotists right now that are kicking themselves in their own ass for stopping Joe Biden, who some say may have actually put up a good fight. I don't know.
This is a significant new New York Times op-ed from actor George Clooney. Now, to remind viewers, George Clooney was one of those celebrities that headlined a major Los Angeles fundraiser with President Biden back in June. And today, he is saying that he believes it is time for President Biden to step aside from this 2024 campaign. Now, George Clooney wrote extensively about President Biden, saying, "We are not going to win in November with this president." He recounted being with Biden at that fundraiser, saying, "It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020.
Yeah, and I would throw Kamala Harris in that hodgepodge. She was definitely on board for the coup.
Oh, she definitely was, but I think I have a theory about that. I think that Kamala Harris was Joe Biden's FU to the coup. I think that they wanted to have their own pick, talking about Obama and Pelosi and others. And I think that Joe Biden put in Kamala Harris and Harris secured the nomination, quote unquote, in a matter of days before Pelosi and Obama and their ilk were able to put together any sort of quote unquote process to pick the nominee. That's my theory anyway.
Had the president gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. The anticipation was that if the president were to step aside, that there would be an open primary. And as I say, Kamala I think she would have done well in that and been stronger going forward. But we don't know that. That didn't happen. we live with what happened. And because the president endorsed Kamala Harris immediately, that really made it almost impossible to have a primary at that time. If it had been much earlier, it would have been different.
Yeah, I mean, I want to believe that too. Biden got several of the last laughs, including, as of today, calling on congressional members shouldn't not be allowed to invest in stock while they're in Congress. I think that's a direct shot across the bow at Nancy Pelosi while she's hospitalized in Europe.
And do you think that came from Joe or Jill?
So it came from Biden Crime Inc. So one of them.
It came from Biden Inc., and I don't think necessarily it's Joe doing it. Every time I see Jill Biden nowadays, especially at state events, she is giving Kamala Harris the coldest of cold shoulders. It was clear during 2020 that Jill Biden did not like Kamala Harris based upon some sniping during the primary process, but I think that Cold War turned into a hot war after the election.
Well, the most brilliant thing involving Jill as of late was that event in France that Trump was at, and Jill is caught giving him the side like flirt eye.
That was interesting, and she's doing this, I think, to show up people like Nancy Pelosi, who, by the way, hope she's feeling better after breaking her hip. Can't say that wasn't exactly unforeseeable given the age of some of the leadership in the Democratic Party. But I do hope she's doing better. But Nancy Pelosi was behind the scenes there, pulling the strings, and she ruined, I should say, her relationship with Biden, and she lost the presidency. She lost the presidency for the Democrats by trying to do all these machinations and being the puppet master behind the scenes.
Gene, you're a nice guy. I don't hope she's doing better. I hope she's in excruciating pain, and I hope she's crippled for the rest of her life after this. She tried to destroy the country. She's an evil person. F her.
Wow, really? You really?
That's my view. You're a very nice person. I'm not.
Listen, I don't hate Democrats, liberals, or leftists.
I do.
They have, let me explain why, and then you can explain why. They have the same motivation as many of us, I think, or at least they started out with the motivation of making the country better. Along the way, they lost their way. I am eternally optimistic that people will see the error of their ways, and I hope that they do. I think in this election, a lot of people who saw themselves as Democrats, leftists, and liberals are now regretting that choice and are coming around somewhat. Anna Kasparian, a great example. She's never going to be a Republican, but she's certainly come around on a lot of things.
The greatest thing the Democrats have done in the last decade or so was the coup against Joe Biden and putting up a moron like Kamala Harris. Everything else they've done was designed to destroy the country. They're the closest thing to the enemy within that you could possibly have.
And as a result of that coup, everyone's legacy is tarnished. Biden's legacy is tarnished. Obama's legacy is tarnished. He's no longer untouchable and infallible. And Pelosi is not only down in influence, she also was down on the ground and needed surgery. So you're going to hear some nominees that we've mentioned for other categories throughout the show because we're getting to the more serious buffoonery here. One of those that we had nominated before, Letitia James. Definitely an egotist. Definitely moved up the ranks, in my opinion, from New York City government through public advocate all the way to the attorney general. Had a rise to power, and now she's going to be suffering, in my opinion, a pretty big fall. Not only with the win by Donald Trump, but I think going forward into 2025, she's going to have all these victories she had, I think, are going away.
Yeah, and what were her victories? Fake lawsuits against Donald Trump. She ran, you're a lawyer. I mean, she ran for Attorney General of the state of New York, pledging to get Trump. Like, if that's not illegal, it's certainly unethical, right? Like, it doesn't even make sense. I don't even remember anyone ever running saying they're like going to get a real criminal. No one was like, elect me and I'll go after John Gotti. It would have been like me, and I'm going after organized crime, right? Like, just it doesn't make sense.
And what would you say to people who say, oh, I'm not going to bother to register to vote because my voice doesn't make a difference, or I'm just one person?
I say one name, Donald Trump. That should motivate you. Get off your ass and vote.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally.
I love it.
I watched part of the presentation on the appeal of the civil case against Trump regarding the real estate valuation and the loans that he received. And the assistant attorney general that appeared for the argument was overwhelmed by the judicial panel and barely could get a sentence out before the court basically eviscerated the legal theory behind that entire lawsuit.
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated...
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Well, several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
I was amazed by what the First Department panel did. It was brutal.
Yeah, and speaking of that, when are we going to get that decision? Shouldn't it be any day now?
Well, I don't think it's going to be any day now, because I think you're going to see courts are going to be going to recesses for the winter, and it's probably going to take a while. The appellate courts take a very long time in writing the decisions. For instance, I just appeared for an argument beginning of the month. I was told not to expect a decision on it for at least 6 to 9 months, if that. So maybe because this is a bigger, higher profile case, we might see some more. We got Sportswire Radio checking in. Hey, how you doing? Good stuff so far, fellas. Appreciate you coming on and joining us. So I think Letitia James is definitely an egotist in the making, and the fall is coming. What say you?
Well, hopefully she's indicted before the appeals court renders its decision.
You really think that's going to happen? I mean, I know that there was some big talk about that because of the video we played a couple of weeks ago saying that after the election, Letitia James is going to be ever vigilant, and Trump's attorney basically said, fuck around and find out. Basically threatening her with malicious prosecution and a whole host of different possible legal entanglements that she's going to have. Do you think that the Trump team will follow through on a threat like that?
I think whether it's the government proper of Donald Trump's administration or the Trump organization in its civil capacity is going to make a lot of these people pay. He already squeezed $15 million out of ABC, George Stephanopoulos, and he's suing several other people as we speak. So put them on the defense, make them spend money, make them be in fear for their livelihood, and Letitia James is definitely high up on that list. We're going to break that ego. Pride cometh before the fall, and that's a big girl.
I would also put Liz Cheney on that list of people that might be in court. There's the House GOP just referred her for an investigation as well. It's going to get interesting for a lot of these hoity-toity, highfalutin people that went after Trump. And certainly Letitia James is one of them. I am going to, and this, Ross isn't doing this, I am going to nominate RFK Jr. Not for general purposes, for one specific thing that to me shows a lot of arrogance and really, as a result of putting this out there, made him look really bad.
I was driving up maybe, really early, like 7, and that woman in a van in front of me hit a bear and killed it.
Oh, that's sad.
So I pulled over and I picked up the bear and put him in the back of my van because I was going to skin the bear.
Things are gonna get weird.
And put the meat in my refrigerator.
What? Excuse me?
Instead of going back to my home in Westchester, I had to go right to the city. And the bear was in my car, and I didn't want to leave the bear in the car. And I said, I had an old bike in my car that somebody asked me to get rid of. I said, let's go put the bear in Central Park, and we'll make it look like he got hit by a bike.
You're batshit crazy.
The next day, it was on every television station.
The discovery of a black bear by a dog walker just a few feet from Central Park's main jogging and bike path today was alarming and strange.
It's called political buffoonery.
When Roseanne Barr looks at you like, what the fuck? You might be saying something a little bat guano crazy, pal. Completely unnecessary, unforced error. What the hell? Apparently a news agency was digging up a story about this, and he decided to get in front of it this way. Could have done without that story.
I thought that was hilarious, and to be honest, he is an egotist. I wouldn't even say for that. To me, it's all the videos circulating of him doing pull-ups with no shirt on, and he's constantly doing push-ups on video. Look, the guy's in great shape, but come on.
I mean, that's a humble brag. That's a humble brag right there, and I'm okay with that. That's fine by me, but...
You didn't think the bear in Central Park was funny? We might have done something like that.
I'm not going to comment on that. I shall neither confirm nor deny that I would have ever picked up a bear carcass and drop it in Central Park.
Oh, man, I thought that was brilliant. I can't...
some of the stories we could tell... some of the stories we could tell that would be very entertaining for our audience.
But for the record, no bears in Central Park or Prospect Park.
Yes, we haven't done that, and we're waiting for the statute of limitations to run out on certain other things. Just saying that. Does RFK Jr. belong in this category? Is he someone that had a rise and kind of damaged himself as a result afterwards? What do you think?
He's in the category. I don't think he's very competitive against these other losers.
Well, clearly the fall wasn't much of a fall, right? He didn't win the presidency, and people thought he was a little, cuckoo. And, to talk about brain worms and things like that, that's still out there. But it's like he ended up with a parachute from Donald Trump and landed safely in the Department of Health and Human Services.
Yeah, so he's like most Democrats. He fell upwards. So good for him.
He fell upwards. I completely agree with that. As we cut to this portion of the show right now, that's going to go into the egotist portion after the show blew up. Ross and I, we watched the news today, and down goes Big Fannie. Fannie Willis was told that she is disqualified from the Trump prosecution in Georgia. Forgive the accent. I know I'm making fun of Fannie Willis, but I don't mean to make fun of the people in Georgia. But the appellate court ruled Fannie Willis Fani, because, she gets upset with that. She's off the case, and she has no one to blame but herself.
Caitlin, what can you tell us about this? This is just coming in the last several minutes. This is a big development.
A big development, and a big development that Donald Trump has wanted for a long time. That case against him in Georgia, the criminal case, where it's accusing him and several others of a racketeering conspiracy related to the 2020 election, it's already been paused. Now, it's not even backburnered. This is a case that will be dead in the water because the Georgia Court of Appeals is now saying that Fani Willis, the leader of the prosecution against Donald Trump, the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, Georgia, she should be disqualified from being able to bring that case. The Georgia Court of Appeals is saying that it's a significant appearance of impropriety caused by the conduct of a public prosecutor. That is Willis, how she behaved, how she was speaking about the case, about Trump publicly, about how she was having a relationship with the top prosecutor that was concealed in this, a man named Nathan Wade. All of that, previously, the trial level judge had looked at and said, Fani Willis can stay on this case. We're not dismissing the indictment. But the Court of Appeals is now taking another look and saying no.
And and just quickly on her, I mean, let's not forget the debacle that was her whole claim to fame for the last few months. She charged lots of people in Trump's orb with crimes and basically called the whole Trump campaign a racketeering and criminal organization, right? Like a RICO statute they charged him under. She hired her boyfriend as a special prosecutor. She paid him lots of money. He took her on lots of expensive trips. She claims she paid him back in cash because that's what black people do. And her father always told her to keep lots of cash on hand. And we know that she's so uppity that she doesn't drink wine or beer. She drinks Grey Goose. The ego on that big girl is pretty big.
Not only that, it's not only the Trump trial that she screwed up. There's some other murder trials going on that have been going on for years where there was talk of prosecutorial misconduct and witness tampering in one of them that led to some plea agreements as well. And while we can talk about all the cases and talk about how, this is the rise of a prominent prosecutor and then fell later on, I got to ask this. How would you like to be a fly on the wall in the office of Sidney Powell or Jenna Lewis right now, who pled guilty to this buffoon? What happens there now?
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. Like, there were a couple, like you said, that pled guilty. And Sidney Powell, I don't think would have ever testified against Trump, but Jeba would have, had she gotten the chance, I think. So I really don't feel bad for her, actually. She caved in. She cried. There was no crime there. There's been precedent. We're not going to go down this road because we're tight on time, but it's been precedent for what has been done in Georgia in the past as far as different slates of electors or calling the state to, he didn't say invent some votes for me. He said, find these votes. They're out there. Your voting rolls are a mess. Your voting system is a mess.
I concur with everything that you're saying right now. So we're going to throw Fani Willis into the egotist category as well. And let us know in the comments what you think about who should win that. Just to recap, we're talking about RFK Jr. with the whole bear thing that he disclosed, Letitia James, Fani Willis, and I do have another name. Oh, all the people in the coup, Obama and Nancy Pelosi and all of them involved in the coup on Sleepy Joe Biden, which, by the way, where the hell has he been lately? We'll get into that a little later as well.